Welcome to the Deep Dive. You're here because you want to get smart, fast on things that matter, and today, well, we're tackling something many of you have actually asked about. How to truly understand and maybe enhance the art of cunnilingus.
Exactly. You want the real insights, not just, the basics. So we've gone deep into a pretty comprehensive resource, Oral Sex, that'll blow her mind, an illustrated guide to giving her amazing orgasms.
Wow, okay. Sounds direct.
It is. It's packed with detail, and our job today is basically to pull out the crucial nuggets for you, the stuff that really makes a difference.
Right, so this isn't going to be a fluffy overview. We're talking anatomy, like what's actually what down there and why it matters. We're going to break down why communication is so vital.
Beyond vital, really.
Okay, beyond vital. And exploring techniques, different positions to try, all that stuff. Think of this as your express route to getting seriously knowledgeable and hopefully more confident.
Yeah, the mission is to give you actionable insights, things you can actually use.
Okay, so where do we start? Maybe with things people often get wrong.
Riffs. Good idea. Let's start by clearing the air. One huge myth the guide tackles is that everyone can, and sort of should, orgasm just from cunnilingus.
Right, that intense pressure sometimes for the big O every single time.
Exactly. But the guide sets the record straight. Orgasm is definitely possible for many, maybe even most, through oral stimulation, but it's not some universal switch you just flip.
Bodies are just different.
Totally different. And things like stress, or even where someone is in their menstrual cycle, can affect response. The real takeaway here, the guide suggests, is shifting the focus away from just orgasm.
Towards overall pleasure, enjoyment.
Precisely. Pleasure-based, not just goal-oriented.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Well, building on that, another myth, that everyone who enjoys receiving cunnilingus wants it for, hours and hours.
The more is always better trap.
Yeah, it's easy to assume, but just think about it. Sexual preferences vary wildly in general, right?
True.
So it makes sense here, too. Some might adore really long sessions, others might prefer shorter bursts, or maybe want it mixed in with other things.
So the key is, don't assume.
Don't assume. Talk to your partner. Find out what they actually want, Duration, frequency, how it fits in. It's all personal.
Which I guess leads us right into the next misconception the guide brings up. The idea that copying porn is the answer.
Oh, definitely. If I just do that move I saw idea.
Yeah. But porn is, well, it's often performance, isn't it? Fantasy, not necessarily a realistic how-to.
Exactly. It's made for viewers, not reflective of the dynamics between two specific people in a real bedroom. The guide really emphasizes that the magic happens when you focus on your partner, their reactions, their body, not trying to recreate some scene.
You're not seeing the communication, the little adjustments happening off camera in those films.
Right. You're missing the real-time feedback loop, focusing on the person right there with you, their breathing, their sounds, their movements. That's way more effective.
Okay, good myth busting. So foundational knowledge time, anatomy. The guide calls it the whole enchilada.
Yeah, I like that phrase. And yes,
Yeah.
the absolute first thing is getting the terms right. Vulva versus vagina.
Okay, break it down.
Simple version. The vulva is everything you see on the outside. The lips, the clitoris, the opening. The vagina is the internal canal.
Got it. External versus internal.
Getting that basic geography down is like step one to understanding how different kinds of stimulation work.
Right, let's take that quick tour then, starting at the top.
Yeah.
The mons pubis.
Yep, that fleshy sort of mound above the clitoris often has pubic hair. And interestingly, the guide points out that because the internal parts of the clitoris extend up that way, gentle pressure here can actually feel really good for a lot of people.
Huh, didn't know that. It's not just padding.
Not just padding.
Yeah.
Then you've got the labia, the outer and inner lips.
And the guide stresses how different these can look.
Massively different. Size, shape, color. Huge variations, all completely normal. And crucially, people have different preferences for how they like their labia touched. Some like it really gentle, some might like a bit of pulling, or even light nibbling sometimes.
So the mantra is?
Ask. Don't assume. See what feels good to them.
Okay. Now, the main event for many, the clitoris.
Right. The guide describes it as being shaped a bit like a wishbone, with most of it actually being internal. The part you see, the glans, is just the tip, super sensitive, and usually tucked under the clitoral hood.
Like a little protective cap.
Exactly. It's basically this incredibly dense bundle of nerve endings purely designed for pleasure.
And that hood is important.
Very. It protects the glands from constant, potentially overwhelming stimulation. As someone gets more aroused, the hood might pull back, exposing the glands more. but sometimes, right before orgasm, it might cover it again slightly. Watching that can be a cue.
So stimulation doesn't have to be like directly on the glands all the time.
Not at all. Many people find stimulation on the hood itself or just around the general area is more comfortable or even more pleasurable, especially at first. Direct can be too intense sometimes.
Okay, and just below that, the urethra.
Yep, the opening where urine comes out. The guide mentions, gentle stimulation nearby might feel nice for some, but direct pressure or trying to penetrate it, generally not desired.
Good to know. It also mentions vulvar ejaculation.
Briefly, yeah. Just noting it's a normal fluid some people release during orgasm, different from urine.
Gotcha. Then the vaginal opening itself.
Right. And even without going inside, the guide says gentle touch, licking, exploring right around the entrance can be really arousing. And this is where lube really starts to become your friend.
We'll definitely come back to lube. Inside the vagina.
The canal. Average length is, 5 to 8 inches or so, but it can stretch. The key thing the guide points out is that most of the nerve endings are concentrated in the front third, closer to the opening.
So deep thrusting isn't always the most stimulating thing vaginally.
Not necessarily. Often it's about stimulating that front part, maybe pressure on the front wall, and also how internal stimulation interacts with the internal parts of the clitoris.
Makes sense. And at the very back.
The cervix, the end of the canal. Generally, the guide advises being gentle here. Bumping it can be uncomfortable or even painful for many, unless they specifically say they like that sensation. Again,
Communication.
always. Then you've got the pelvic floor muscles, the PC or Kegel muscles.
Ah, yes, Kegels.
The guide notes that strengthening these can actually enhance orgasm intensity and control for the person with the vulva, and maybe even for a partner feeling the contractions.
Interesting. Okay, what about the G-spot? That famous, mysterious spot.
Yeah. The guide explains it as an area, not really a distinct spot, on the front wall of the vagina, maybe a few inches in. It can become more sensitive or swell slightly when aroused.
But it's not like a guaranteed button?
Definitely not. Some people experience intense pleasure from stimulating it, others not so much, or the sensation might be different, maybe more like needing to pee initially. It's very individual.
And finally, the perineum and anus.
Right. The perineum is that stretch of skin between the vaginal opening and the anus. Super sensitive, lots of nerve endings, can feel great with pressure or touch. The anus is separate, obviously, but the guide acknowledges some people enjoy combining anal play or touch with cunnilingus. Just stresses, hygiene, consent, separate lube if that's happening.
Wow. Okay, that's a comprehensive tour. So we have the map. Now what? The guide talks about a vulvar viewing party. Sounds intriguing.
It does, doesn't it? But it's less about a party and more about intentional appreciation, taking dedicated time to just look at and appreciate your partner's unique vulva.
Not in a clinical way, but appreciatively.
Exactly. The guide suggests making sure you have decent lighting, could be soft and romantic, could just be enough to actually see clearly, and crucially, setting aside time where there's no rush.
Creating a safe space for it, I imagine.
Absolutely key. Relaxation, reassurance. The guide points out that for many people, having a partner show genuine positive curiosity about their body, wanting to learn about it for their pleasure, can be incredibly affirming, maybe even rare.
So reassuring them it's about connection, not inspection.
Precisely. And positive feedback is huge. Vocalizing what you find beautiful or interesting, I love the shape here, or this part looks so soft, simple things. It helps the partner feel seen and comfortable.
And then actually exploring. Gently.
Yeah. Sensory exploration,
Yeah.
gentle touch, noticing different textures, maybe even scent if that feels natural. It's like information gathering, but in a really intimate way without pressure for it to lead anywhere immediately.
And the point is to take that knowledge.
And integrate it. Use what you learned visually and through touch next time you're intimate. It leads to more informed, more personalized pleasure.
Okay, so we've learned the layout.
Yeah.
Now, putting it all together in the moment.
Yeah.
Communication seems like the next logical step. The guide says, beyond the licks.
Yeah, because, as it rightly points out, vulvas don't come with instruction manuals.
Right.
And lots of people are still figuring out their own preferences or how to even talk about them. What feels good can change day to day or over time. Being a great partner means actively creating a space where it feels safe and normal to talk about this stuff.
For both people involved.
Absolutely. Asking what your partner wants and also feeling comfortable expressing your own needs. But communication isn't just talking, is it?
No, the guy has some cool practical techniques, like the compliment sandwich.
Yeah, that's a classic for giving feedback gently. Start positive, Offer the suggestion and positive.
Give me an example.
Okay, like, wow, I love how responsive you are right here. Maybe try moving your hips just a little when I do this. Yeah, like that. Ah, that feels amazing.
See? Validation, suggestion, validation.
Nice. Takes the sting out of critique. What else?
The let me show you approach. Super direct. The receiving partner literally guides the giver's hand or mouth. Here, like this pressure. Can't get much clearer than that.
Effective. I like the secret code idea, too.
Right. Establishing simple signals. Maybe a certain kind of moan means yes, keep doing that. A sharp inhale means too much. A tap on the shoulder means change something up, whatever works for the couple.
Takes the pressure off having to form full sentences mid-bliss.
Exactly. Then there's the rock around the clock technique.
Sounds fun. It is. Imagine the vulva is a clock face. You use a finger or your tongue to explore, say, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, asking, how does this feel? More here. It's a playful way to map sensitivity.
Clever. What about show and tell?
That involves one partner masturbating while the other observes. Obviously requires a certain comfort level, but it can be incredibly instructive seeing exactly the touch, rhythm, pressure they use on themselves.
Direct visual learning.
Yep. And then for deepening things over time, the guide mentions fulfilling fantasies, actually talking about your ideal cunnilingus scenarios. What would the perfect session look like for you?
Opens up possibilities. And finally, the I want that approach, using porn or erotica.
Yeah, but in a different way. Watching together and pointing things at, see how they did that. I think I'd like that. Or that reaction she had. That's how I feel when you do X. Using it as a conversation starter, not a blueprint.
Okay, so communication channels wide open. Now, the actual application, the general how-to, the guide, suggests starting high.
Yeah, meaning don't just dive straight for the main event. Build anticipation. Start with kissing, touching, exploring erogenous zones above the waist.
Neck, ears, shoulders, collarbone.
Exactly. Moving slowly towards the breasts, maybe teasing around the nipples before focusing on them directly, if that's something your partner enjoys. Build that energy.
Then go down.
Gradually working your way down, kissing the stomach, the hip bones, paying special attention to the inner thighs. They can be incredibly sensitive, and it builds anticipation for reaching the vulva.
And then, before the main act, that vulva appreciation moment again.
Yes, take a beat. Look, touch gently, maybe whisper something appreciative. Show you're enjoying the whole journey, the whole person. It builds intimacy.
Okay, ready to dive in.
The guide recommends starting slow. Maybe focus on the outer labia first, then the inner, the area around the clitoral hood. Use plenty of saliva or lube right from the start.
And maybe let the partner guide you initially.
Great idea, especially early on, or if you're unsure, let them place your mouth or show you where to begin.
All right, the nitty-gritty, licking techniques. The guide makes a point about duration.
It does. It highlights that many people wish their partners spent more time on cunnilingus. Like, significantly more, maybe 15, 20, even 45 minutes longer than they typically receive.
Wow. So committing time is a big part of it.
Huge. And it's not just about the clock, it's how you use that time. Variety is key.
So different tongue techniques.
Absolutely. Think about the shape of your tongue. Flat and broad for covering more area gently, or pointed for more focused, intense pressure.
And different movements.
Yep, side to side, up and down like you're licking a lollipop. Little circles, figure eights. Experiment, and most importantly, pay attention to your partner's responses, their sounds, their breathing, how their body moves.
The guide has that playful optometrist move.
Yeah, like try one technique, then another slightly different one, and ask number 1 or number 2, which feels better? Gets direct feedback in a lighthearted way.
What about things like the AZ lick or tracing shapes?
The guide mentions them more as like experimental possibilities. Fun things to try for novelty, maybe tracing letters or simple geometric shapes. But don't feel like you have to follow some rigid pattern. Start slow if you try them.
It also mentioned doggy licks.
Yeah, kind of a funny name, but the idea is using a big, broad, flat, maybe even slightly slobbery tongue for that initial widespread, gentle stimulation. Covers a lot of ground, warms things up.
And don't be shy with saliva.
Definitely not. In this context, it's natural lubricant. More is usually better.
Good point. What about exploring anywhere but there?
That's a great teasing technique. Focusing on the inner thighs, the labia, the perineum, circling around the clitoris to build arousal before honing in on it directly can drive someone wild.
Okay, temperature play, fire and ice.
The guide mentions it, but with serious caution. Sips of a cold drink or warm drink before going down peppermint tea is suggested for warmth, but absolutely no sugary stuff like juice or soda near the vulva. Ice cubes need care too, not directly on sensitive skin for too long. Maybe use temperature play toys specifically designed for it.
Safety first. Ultimately, though, it's about freestyle licking. Yeah, that's the goal. Being present, relaxed, intuitive, using the techniques you've learned, but mostly responding to your partner in the moment, doing what feels right and what clearly works for them.
Makes sense. Now, what about adding hands? Getting hands-on.
Right, because oral sex doesn't have to be only oral. Using your hands at the same time adds a whole other dimension.
Oh, so what can hands do?
Lots. You can use them to gently spread the labia for better access, support your partner's legs or hips, stroke their thighs or stomach.
Or stimulate other places simultaneously?
Exactly. Caress their breasts, run fingers through their hair, hold their hips. Anything that adds to the overall sensory experience.
And hands can stimulate the vulva directly too, right?
Uh,
While you're using your mouth.
For sure.
Yeah.
Gently stroking the labia, teasing the clitoral hood with a finger, exploring the vaginal entrance, or even adding internal stimulation.
With fingers.
Yeah, if your partner enjoys that, always use lube, make sure your nails are short and smooth, maybe even consider wearing gloves. Or you could introduce a small toy for internal vibration while you focus orally.
The guide mentions anal stimulation here too.
Briefly, yeah, as another potential add-on for those who enjoy it. Again, emphasizing the need for consent, hygiene, gloves, and separate, dedicated lube for any anal touch.
And hands can give your tongue a break.
That's a practical point. If your jaw gets tired, switch to more manual stimulation for a bit, then go back. Helps with endurance.
And you mentioned toys briefly, like specific vibrators.
Yeah, the guide notes things like small tongue vibrators you can hold in your mouth, clitoral vibrators you can use alongside oral, or even internal toys like vibrating eggs or G-spot vibes all add layers of sensation.
Okay, lots of options there. You mentioned it a few times, but let's really focus on the importance of lubrication. The guide calls it lube is love.
And it's not wrong. Seriously, good lubrication makes everything better. Enhances touch, reduces friction so things feel smoother, transmits sensations more effectively.
Prevents soreness, especially with finger or toy play.
Absolutely. Prevents micro tears or discomfort. And the guide makes a crucial point. How much someone lubricates naturally is not always a direct sign of how aroused they are.
Right. Other factors influence it.
Totally. Hormonal birth control, certain medications like antihistamines, stress, hydration levels, lots of things can affect natural lubrication, so relying on supplemental lube is often just smart.
Okay, types of lube. The guide breaks it down.
Yeah, mainly into silicone-based and water-based for vulva-friendly options.
Pros and cons.
Silicone lasts a long time, very slippery, great for manual vaginal play, safe for skin, compatible with latex nitrile barriers. Cons are it can stain fabrics, isn't compatible with silicone toys, and often doesn't taste great if you're doing oral after applying it.
Okay. Water-based.
Compatible with all toys and barriers, generally easier cleanup, often tastes more neutral. Downsides are it can dry out faster, but you can often reactivate it with a bit of water or saliva. Big caution here. Check the ingredients. Avoid water-based lubes with sugar or glucose if they'll be near the vulva.
Yeast infection risk.
Exactly. And some people are sensitive to glycerin, another common ingredient, so patch test if you're unsure.
And the rule is, use enough.
Use plenty, don't be stingy. More is almost always better. And that firm warning again, avoid food products like chocolate syrup, whipped cream, honey. The sugar is terrible for vulvar health.
Lube is love, sugar is not.
Got it.
Okay, changing perspective. Positions for cunnilingus. There's more than just the standard missionary equivalent.
Oh, way more. The guide really encourages exploring different angles to find what works best for both partners in terms of comfort, access, and sensation.
So beyond the classic easy as pie woman on her back, legs open.
Right, there's classy chassis like a mechanic under a car. The woman is on hands and knees. You're underneath looking up. Gives great visual access.
Okay, what else?
Pour some sugar on me. She's kneeling but bent forward, maybe resting elbows on the bed. You're kneeling in front. Allows access to vulva and maybe breasts too. London Bridge. She's on her back, but puts her feet up on your shoulders.
Gives her more control over the angle and pressure.
Exactly. Riding into the night is the opposite. She straddles your head while you're lying down. Can allow for deeper tongue contact if she likes that.
Kneeling worship.
She's maybe sitting or lying on the edge of a bed or chair. You're kneeling on the floor. Offers different angles. Have a leg up. She's standing, maybe with one leg raised on a stool or chair. You're kneeling or sitting.
Lots of variety.
Definitely. There's also orgasmic earmuffs, which is a side-lying position, often very comfy and intimate. And up the wall, She stands leaning against a wall, you're sitting or kneeling.
The guide mentions advanced ones too, with a warning.
Yeah, names like leg over easy, forward fold, temple of the goddess, bending bridges, they often require more flexibility or strength. The guide basically says, know your bodies, communicate, and don't push into anything painful or strained.
Sensible advice. And what about simultaneous pleasure? The 69 positions.
Yep, covers those too. The traditional 69, obviously. Sliding spoons is a side-lying 69, often more comfortable. Sweet handiwork adds manual stimulation into the 69. A roll in the hay might be more active. Minding the gap maybe accounts for height differences. Lots of ways to make mutual oral work.
Okay, one last really crucial area. Safer sex and cunnilingus.
Super important. There's a common myth that oral sex is totally safe, but STIs can absolutely be transmitted through oral vulvar contact.
So again, communication first.
Always. Talking about testing history, risks, agreements, it's fundamental. Then the guide discusses barriers.
Like dental dams.
Exactly. Dental dams are squares of latex or polyurethane designed for oral sex. They can sometimes be hard to find or a bit pricey, though.
Any alternatives?
Yeah, the guide suggests DIY options. You can cut a condom, non-lubricated, non-spermicidal, ideally, lengthwise, or cut the tip off and cut it down the side to make a square. Or cut up a non-lubricated latex or nitrile glove.
Resourceful.
You just place the barrier over the vulva and perform oral through it. Use a bit of water-based lube on the side facing the vulva for better sensation transfer.
Keeping it in
It
place.
can be tricky. Some people just hold it, others use special harnesses or even incorporate it into lingerie like garter belts.
And gloves for manual play.
Also, a good, safer sex practice protects both partners from potential transmission via small cuts or hangnails, protects the receiver from fingernail scratches, and helps lube last longer. Plus, avoids issues if the giver has, say, acidic residue from food on their hands.
Good points. And general hygiene, of course.
Basic hygiene, yeah. And that final reminder to keep sugary stuff away from the vulva to avoid yeast infections.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That was genuinely a deep dive. We've covered a huge amount, from anatomy myths to communication, techniques, positions, safety.
It's a lot of information, for sure. The main thing now is for listeners to maybe digest it, think about what resonated, what seemed interesting or new.
Right. It's not a checklist you have to complete. It's about picking maybe one or two things that sparked curiosity and exploring them. Because sexual pleasure is so personal, isn't it? A journey of discovery with your partner or partners.
Exactly. The guide, and really anyone sensible, would say there are no true sex experts in the sense of knowing everything for everyone. We're all just learning. The key is staying curious, communicating openly, being willing to try things, and importantly, being able to laugh together if something doesn't quite work out.
Absolutely. Keep it light, keep it communicative. So maybe the final thought for our listeners is this. Reflecting on everything we've discussed, what's just one small thing, one insight or technique that you might consider trying or talking about with your partner?
Yeah, what's one little step you could take based on this conversation to explore intimacy or pleasure a little more deeply? That's your takeaway to ponder.